right. Well, let me share this screen here. Just a couple of, I guess, kind of housekeeping things before we go ahead and get started. So as always, you can always ask questions. You can use the Q&A function or put it in the chat and we'll just answer them at the very end. We're also going to have a little poll at the end and just kind of give you some feedback here of some different topics that you'd like to hear next. So that way, if you've been dying to know about something, we're happy to, we want to make sure that you're getting value out of these. And so, we're going to make that available there at the end, right before Q&A time. So, hopefully you take advantage of that. And then let me pull up. All right, so today we're going to be talking about apartment search trends in fall of 2020. So, and how online search behavior has changed during the pandemic. So, we all know that this has been kind of a crazy year, and so that is reflected as well in the search trends. I think it's, some of the findings are pretty interesting. We hope you find them interesting as well. And so I think we're going to go ahead and get started now. We've had enough time for people to come into the room, and let's get into it. So there we go. So for those of you that haven't been on a webinar before or don't know who we are, my name is Andrew Cederland. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at ConversionLogix. And joining me today is Joe Carino, our Chief Revenue Officer. Joe, if you want to introduce yourself a little bit.
Sure. Good afternoon and good morning to some of you. So thank you for joining us today. We're very excited about this and glad you could join us.
All right. So a little bit about us at ConversionLogix. So we're a digital marketing agency based out of Seattle and also in Austin, Texas. Kind of have two hubs there, and then we have people all over the country, in every time zone, and I feel like half the states now. And we are a premier Google partner, Facebook marketing partner, and then we also, over the last couple of years, have started developing our own technology. So we have a software suite called the Conversion Cloud. It's a lead generation and attribution and analytics tool. So different widgets and apps designed to help you get more leads, like appointment scheduling, tour scheduling, which has been hugely popular during all of the pandemic, as well as some analytics and attribution on the backside. So you can, upload a rent roll, see how many people leased from your leads. You can see the path to conversion, all that good stuff. And so a lot of the data that we're looking at is going to come from both our search campaigns that we've been running, as well as some of the lead data we get from the Conversion Cloud. So the agenda today is we're going to talk through the state of search traffic during COVID-19. We're going to look at emerging search trends. And then I'm going to kick it over to Joe. He's going to talk about how to optimize your search marketing, and then also some additional fall marketing strategies, what to do in light of what we're seeing changing, this summer versus last summer, this fall versus last fall. So we're going to start off by talking about the state of search traffic. And so kind of the first place to start is, what does search demand look like? What has it looked like over the last rolling 12 months? And so you can see here, this is apartments for rent searches. So generic category search, looking at it from March of last year to today, or a couple weeks ago when we pulled this data. And so you can see there that the increase in searches last year is what you'd expect, kind of a steady increase up to the peak in summer, and then a decrease down after summer leasing was over, and then an increase again in the beginning of the year. Normally you start to see that steady pickup, and instead of kind of running a straight line up to the next peak, we saw the COVID effect, which is the deep, steep drop off where everyone, there was a couple week period there. We were doing weekly webinars where we were talking through what we were seeing, what was happening. And then out of that, we actually recovered pretty quickly. I think, people, really, there was a couple weeks of sort of freezing, not sure what to do. And then I think a lot of people realized, hey, by the time I'm going to move, things will hopefully be back to the point where I'm going to be able to move. I'm going to be able to make a decision around, where I'm going to be living for the next year or 2 years or 3 years. And so, and then what we actually see is a higher peak this year than last year, which, if you had said that back in March, no one would have believed you, but it actually peaked at a higher rate, and you can see that part of it is pent up demand from, kind of this decrease here, which pushed more people into a shorter time frame and a shorter window. And then you can also see that it's actually higher this time or higher, kind of September timeframe this year than it was last year. And so we're sort of seeing an extended fall because a lot of people, their plans were put on hold. They weren't able to move when they wanted. And so now their cycle is changing, and they might have done month to month for a few months and then shifted their lease to later in the year. And then looking at organic search traffic, so similar chart showing from January 2019 to September of this year. This is organic search sessions. And so you can see last year, it kind of coming up through spring and then dropping off, started to increase again, and then kind of a smaller organic drop off there, and then kind of a steady climb back up. But notice that it didn't actually reach the same peak as before. And one of the reasons for that is paid traffic. And so looking at paid search traffic, this is median paid search sessions from January 2019 to September 2020. And so you can see here just a huge increase in paid search traffic. And this is just due to decreasing cost per clicks. And so what we saw kind of during COVID is everyone kind of froze up and then, didn't know what to do. I think a lot of people, because of some of the eviction moratoriums that we are seeing, as well as, they might not be able to turn the units that they need. So they're holding on advertising or people just are staying in place more. So they're not having to fill units. We saw a lot of people kind of stay out of the market, or out of the kind of the search market. And so one of the ways that's reflected here is in the paid search traffic, because you can see here the cost per click dropping substantially. So normally, cost per click, normally the cost per click, the average cost per click increases proportionally with Google's stock price. It always goes up just the way that their stock always goes up. That's how they make money. And so what's interesting is, such a severe drop off compared to, August of last year. You can see here it's, to almost $3, about the $3 range. And here it's dropped down to about $2. And so I think it's due to two things. Is there were a ton more people in the market all at once. We saw that peak of interest go high. So when there's a ton of supply out there, obviously it's going to get cheaper in order to bid on those keywords. And so we saw that reflected here, which then caused search traffic to rise for clients. And then, again, showing year over year paid search traffic. So median search sessions last year versus this year, much higher in September. Again, that's both due to cheaper cost per click, as well as an increase in people moving later because their plans were put on hold, sort of like an extended summer leasing season in some cases and in some locations. Additionally, you can see here the flip side of that is the drop off from this year to last year. So we had more traffic, and we actually have less of a drop off from kind of the peak in July and August. There was we only dropped about 5% less search sessions in 2020 as we had in 2019. So again, kind of seeing it slow down, the leasing season slow down a little bit slower than we saw previously. And so one of the, when I say something like that, those of you that maybe are in specific locations, they might not be seeing that. And one of the reasons that, that might be the case is that we're seeing pretty unprecedented, just changes in the places that people are searching and places that people are moving to. And so you can see here, location is starting to change about what locations people are desiring. And so when you look at year over year growth for one bedrooms, the top most expensive markets had a negative 7.2%, and the least expensive went up by 5%. Out of the 50 largest metros, 37 saw a year-over-year decline. So inbound migrations to these expensive places that we've seen just top the fastest growing cities list for the last 10 years, that's decreasing. And then the outbound migration, kind of the brain drain that we saw of people, get a job, move to the big city, that's actually going down too. And so you have a lot of people that are staying in more affordable metros. Tech hubs is one place that, we're seeing this a lot. So San Francisco is the largest decline. It's 15% decline in share of inbound searches coming from outside the Bay Area. So 15% less people are searching, looking to move into the Bay Area. In Denver, that's 5%. And then Raleigh, Austin, Nashville, Seattle, and San Jose also have 4%. Some of those economies are a little bit more diversified away from tech. San Francisco obviously is kind of the poster child for tech. And so, those are the jobs where you can work anywhere. And so that's why we're seeing such a decrease in searches there. And here's the chart for San Francisco, so you can see it yourself. It's the most expensive metro in the US. Year-over-year rent decline, 11%. And you can see the popularity of searches going down as well. Same thing with Denver, year-over-year rent decline of 20%, and you can see that decreasing. Seattle saw something similar, year-over-year decline of 12.7%. And San Jose had a year-over-year rent decline of 9.3%. And so you can see that all of these, this is bearing out in, net migration to cities, which is showing in the searches, and then being reflected in the rents. The other place that's impacted are college towns. And so rent growth in college towns was actually on pace to increase almost 5% in February for this coming year. And then there was a 5% swing by August, and sort of pre-COVID, post-COVID, it was down 0.5%. And so normally you'd see all these students moving back on campus, filling up these communities, filling up these buildings, and that just didn't happen this year. Or if it did, it happened in a much smaller scale. And so this was the first decline since January of 2017. And then rents that have less college students actually increase. So at the same time when you might see a decrease in rent in a college-specific neighborhood, in a different neighborhood in the same city, we actually there's actually an increase in rents, showing that people are no longer wanting to live right next to the no need to live next to the college anymore. A great example of this is Boston. So Boston is home to an extraordinary amount of universities. I think it's the 4th most in the nation. And you can see here that they're also an expensive metro, and they had a decline of 8%, 8.4%. So next one, we're going to talk a little bit about floor plans. So what does supply and demand in Google Ads tell us about floor plan preferences among apartment seekers? Are people changing what they're searching for in light of what's happening in the world? So the first one that we're going to look at is studios. And so on this chart, you can see search impression share and then the average cost per click. And so average search impression share is this year actually differs dramatically from the typical seasonal trend. Normally we see a lot more people searching for these in the summertime, and so the cost per click decreases. This year you can see the cost per click, the cost per click went up. And one of the reasons for that is there just weren't people searching. Google Trends also indicates there's actually a lower amount of people searching for studios than before. And so, there's always conjecture of why this is. And one of the reasons is that maybe people that are looking for a studio, they really want to move out on their own, but they're looking for the cheapest option. They really just can't afford it anymore. They're deciding to stay with their parents, or maybe they're saying, hey, I'm just going to have a roommate, even though I don't really want one anymore. I wanted to live on my own, but they're going to go ahead and get a roommate. And so one of the places we didn't really see much of a change was 1-bedroom searches. And so 1-bedrooms kind of followed the typical trend that we normally see, where increase of searches, and it's pretty consistent this year versus last year for 1-bedrooms. But one of the places that's interesting is 2-bedrooms. And so there was actually an increase in 2-bedroom searches this year versus last year. And so I think that they've talked about sort of the K-shaped recovery that we're seeing, and I think that that's probably reflected in this 2-bedroom search. And so you have two sides of the same coin. It could be somebody that works from home now and they want to have more space and they feel like they can afford more space, and so they want to set up a room for their office. And then you also have people that maybe would have looked for a studio. They would have wanted to get out on their own, live by themselves, and they're deciding, hey, I really, really need a roommate in order to afford this. I'm trying to cut costs. And so they're looking for a roommate and ending up in a 2-bedroom. And so we saw, again, there was an increase this year versus last year. And the last piece that we're going to touch on is a little bit of a longer buying cycle. And so one of the reasons that we're seeing this, like I said before, is that there's a lot of uncertainty. With uncertainty, it creates indecision, and so people are waiting and waiting and waiting to feel comfortable, waiting till in some places there's hard to get moving trucks because so many of the migration patterns have changed from years past. And so we analyzed a bunch of tours that came through our Schedule Genie, our tour scheduling software in the Conversion Cloud, and kind of just to see the time it took to convert. And so you can see here the number of minutes that it took from somebody even clicking a search ad and going on a website before scheduling a tour has gone up dramatically since March, and you can see it kind of peaks in March and through the summertime. And so normally if somebody's, clicking a search ad, especially if it's like something like a branded search, they're going to, go for it and they're going to schedule a tour right away. But, going through and taking the time and really, weighing their options of what they want to do, and, oh, do I want to schedule a tour? And maybe what kind of tour do I feel like I want to do based on the location of this building? It's taking them longer to make that decision. And again, it's the number of increase in the number of times that somebody goes to a website. So you can see there, a steady rise and then a huge increase kind of July, August, right when people are hopping around, cross-shopping different websites. And actually in September, it still remains higher, an increased number of visits to a website after the initial click from a search ad than ever before. This summer, as well as right now, is still higher than it was last year. We even actually looked at a couple of examples where somebody hit a website, 30 or 40 times before finally converting. We also saw, in the Conversion Cloud, we have the lease journey visualizer, so you can see what kind of, or the lead journey visualizer, so what they were doing up until they became a lead on your site. And so in looking at this, we saw somebody that it took them, I think 6 months before they toured. They went, visited a website, came back a few different times, and then they finally scheduled a tour in September. And so some of these cycles are really taking quite a long time. So Joe, I'm going to send it over to you now, and you can, let's see here, I'll give you the remote control, and then you can, of course, I'm on a different computer now, so now it's telling me I have to make a bunch of accessibility changes in order to give you control.
You probably will have to click for me, is that all right?
Yeah, it's all good. I'll click for you.
Well, first of all, Andrew, thank you. I appreciate that information. I think everyone out there, recognizes a lot of these different demand periods that are happening. And we're going to take a look now, really, how to respond to some of that stuff and what you should be doing. So really, what are some of the opportunities to optimize your search marketing? Andrew? The first thing you want to take a look at, obviously, is your Google ads. Who should you be targeting for these local apartment seekers? How should you be targeting? And, if you're, as Andrew said, some of these very expensive cities, they're not seeing that migration outbound, and they're saying, okay, how do we, target, our local seekers these days? Because their national interest isn't there any longer. So clearly, their local targeting versus their national targeting is going to be very important. Also, there are cities that, many of the renters are outbound migration, that is happening. But they still need to target their local, target market audience, because 26 of the 50 largest metros are actually retaining renters in 2020 compared to 2019. And one thing in particular here is that this graph is great because it still shows the popularity of apartments near me still being as important, if not more important these days than it did, almost 2 years ago. So it's still very important that you are looking at your local audience when you really are looking at Google Ads and really trying to target that audience. Andrew?
Yeah, sorry, I had a little, there we go.
Your mouse, there you go.
Yeah.
All right. So again, who should you be targeting and expanding, who should be expanding their reach? As Andrew mentioned earlier, there are cities like San Francisco that are seeing, people, let's say, that are moving out of the city into the suburbs, or areas like Sacramento, Richmond, Riverside, or Philadelphia. They're seeing this inbound of migration of renters coming from those very expensive areas. So someone in that marketplace should not only be targeting their local ads, but also should be expanding their reach a little bit into some of these other, more expensive ads, more expensive areas, I should say. And one way to really do that is really take a look at how you are optimizing your Google My Business listing. Making sure that you're updating your posts regularly. Very important. I mean, the activity that you put onto your Google My Business site will continue to keep your site, top of mind. Set up an appointment link so that people can go for self-scheduling tools that allows them to really engage with your site. Ask your residents for positive reviews. People forget how important those reviews can be. And as we know, people love reviews. They love reading reviews. They make decisions on reviews. And if you're able to put positive reviews on your Google My Business site, and all of a sudden that starts to trigger some, some reaction from your visitors, you're going to see more and more of that. So always be reminded that there's nothing wrong with asking your current, let's say, visitors living with you to ask for, for positive reviews. And of course, you want to create a better landing page, or I should say not even a better, but let's say experience, a little bit more of an enhanced landing page. Increase those chances to convert people to prospects. Here are some examples from our conversion tool, for instance, self-scheduling tool, promote offers, look at live chat, click to text and to call. These are great opportunities to really engage with that apartment seeker. Google Ads will always favor that mobility-friendly sites are faster load times. So that's really important. And that's one thing you really want to take a look at. Look at how you I'm sorry. I heard a whistle there. I thought that was the police coming after you there, Andrew. Look at how you're linking your landing pages and using relative apartment and location keywords. Very important that you really want to enhance your landing pages during this time period. Let's take a look at some of the fall markets now. And really, this goes to, if you could go to the next slide there, Andrew. This goes to that longer buying cycle that Andrew spoke about. It's so important on how you are nurturing those leads these days. There are many different retargeting opportunities. You have display, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. These are great retargeting tools that would really extend that reach to that apartment seeker, depending on their searching and how they're finding you. So there's always a great opportunity there to extend that retargeting, based on the different product that's out there. Email campaigns, never more important. I mean, this is where that apartment seeker that Andrew spoke about, that one guy that's been out there for 6 months, chances are he probably had a drip campaign that was hitting him every few months or every few weeks. And, in some way, shape, or form, he was re-engaging with that. And again, that is a great tool that is easy to apply and easy to keep engaged with your seekers or apartment seekers. And of course, the communication tools, never more important than having those different tools available, that if that apartment seeker wants to text or call, that there's this, that type of availability. But it really comes down to that longer buying cycle, and re-engaging with them differently long-term is really what we're seeing. And the opportunities are there. So any one of these opportunities, depending on your need, could really work well. So some of our real key takeaways here today, obviously paid search traffic seems to be slowing down, but renters are moving, to they aren't moving, I should say, to expensive metros, as we talked with some of the major markets that are out there. So you have to really keep that targeting, local in your mind. That's very important. We still, 26 of those metro areas that we talked about, those major areas, are not seeing that outbound. So depending on your market, it's important to really look at how you're focusing in on that local apartment seeker. And of course, all this applies to adapting to that longer buying cycle. There are a number of different tools out there to really extend your reach. And if you look at those opportunities within your own market, there are some great benefits to what's out there right now.
Great. Well,
so
thank
that,
you.
I guess we would love your feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me. I was going to say, let me pull the poll up here. So I'm gonna launch this poll. We don't do this very often, but yeah, we just want to ask a few things. And so while you're going and filling out that poll, again, this is anonymous, so feel free to be as brutally honest as you want to be. And hopefully you found some value out of this webinar. And yeah, if there's anything, obviously, if you have any questions about anything that we've talked about, definitely put them in the chat. And I'm gonna look at the questions right now. And one of the questions I'll answer just while the poll is going is, what is paid search traffic, or what are we defining as paid search traffic when we were talking about those graphs? And that's specifically pay-per-click. And so organic was actually flat or even down a little bit year over year, organic traffic. And one of the reasons is that there was, people were getting a lot more users from paid traffic versus prior years, just because the costs were so cheap. With the same budget, it was getting stretched a lot further. And so we saw a huge increase in share from paid search instead of organic search. As far as any top keyword searches question that came through, so one of the top keyword searches were, apartments near me were still up year over year from years prior. And then, there weren't any kind of specific, searches that were really substantially different. Probably the biggest ones were kind of the ones that we pulled out here. So the studio being lower, and then the 2-bedroom being higher. Those were kind of the two big fluctuations. Across the board, it was generally pretty similar. And then it was really just down to location. And so if you were in some of these, less expensive kind of outskirts metros like Joe was talking about, like a Sacramento, you saw an increase in demand coming in, versus if you're in some of these, cities, you're not seeing as many searches from out of your area. So you want to be able to, maybe shift some budget away from like a broad national campaign to something a little bit more local and targeted. And then another question is, do we have a forecast for the overall leasing season the rest of 2020? I wish that we did. From everything that we're seeing is, again, it's a little bit, we're seeing a smaller slowdown this year than last year, but it's also pretty bifurcated, where some places are really struggling because they're in metros that people are not moving to as much anymore. And so I think it'll take a little bit longer for those to recover. And then for the ones that are doing well, we're also seeing metros that are seeing crazy rent growth that haven't had rent growth in forever. So it's definitely kind of, it's very different. And so it really depends on where you are, what you're going to see. But in general, we're seeing less of a decline this fall versus last fall, because I think some people are shifting their strategies, or not their strategies, they're shifting their priorities around on what they want to do. And then I think, again, it's going to be, we're going to see a similar kind of tick up next year. I think next year will be much more of a traditional year. So I think, we kind of got through the crazy summertime. It's now starting to slow down, and it should pick up back to normal here in January. The next question is, what are some features of a good landing page? So, there's a lot that goes into this, but when you're talking about paid search, Google always looks at landing page relevance. So how relevant are the things that you're talking about? If you're, speaking about 1-bedrooms in your ads, you always want to be, sending them to a 1-bedroom page. But probably the biggest thing is, we really want to see a good, simple call to action that really answers the prospect's question and allows them, we call it the acronym of WIFM, what's in it for me. And, one of the things that we've really tried to do, and what we've tried to build in the Conversion Cloud is it's really just giving prospects, what their, an answer to their question, I guess. And so, a lot of times contact forms, they fill out a contact form, who knows where it goes? They don't know if they're going to get a text or a call or an email. And so being able to say, hey, you can schedule a call or schedule a virtual appointment or schedule an in-person appointment, as well as, hey, claim this offer. They know exactly what they're getting for what they're giving up, which is their information. And so regardless, you always want a clear landing page with good content, and relevant content. But I think, making sure that they can take good next steps, either through, a tool like we have built in the Conversion Cloud with Schedule Genie or Concession Manager, or another one, there's plenty out there. Having those clear call to action and kind of next steps is really, really crucial. Another question is, based on our search trends, would you say that the Seattle suburban market outgrowth will perform its primary markets? So I think as far as Seattle goes, I don't have specific data on that in front of me, but based on what we're seeing kind of in aggregate, Seattle downtown as a whole, I think will decrease, and then we'll see some of the tertiary areas. So I'm actually sitting in Bothell, which is the suburb northeast of Seattle, kind of on the east side, but the northern east side. I don't think that we're going to see a decrease in rents in like Bellevue, Kirkland, Bothell, the same that we would in Seattle, just because less people going downtown to commute. Seattle's a pretty heavy tech hub, and so Microsoft and Amazon, I know, have both said you can work from home, and so I can see a lot of the kind of the tertiary areas getting you know, some increased rents versus the downtown area. All right. Well, we got some great
Hey,
poll
how we doing
feedback.
on that?
I was gonna say we got 51% of people. Oh, 52 now. Okay, 29 people out of 55 left here to take the poll. So appreciate that from everybody, and I'll just leave it open for a few more questions, and then we can call it here. Any trends that you can share on the Austin market from Olivia? So we could definitely get those for you. I don't have them right offhand. So the only reference to Austin in here was they had about a 4% decline, similar to what we saw for Seattle, and I think there was a half a dozen or so that kind of had the same similar trend of sort of the 4 to 5% decrease from the from kind of the inbound migration from other places. But if you, Olivia, if you just shoot me an email, and it's Andrew C at clxmedia.com. We can get somebody to talk to you and kind of walk through. We can get you some better data, I guess, more concrete data. All right. Well, I think that's it. So I will stop my share here. I'm going to kill the, I'm going to end the poll, and then yeah, I think we answered all of our questions, so I think that we're good. So yeah, I just want to say thanks to everybody for joining us today. It was kind of a quicker webinar, and hopefully you found it valuable. If you don't, if you didn't see something that you wanted to see, you can always you can reply to the email. You can go on our website, leave us feedback, and any of the tools available to talk to us or fill out this poll. And yeah, just thank you for taking the time out of your day. I know it. If you're anything like me, you get Zoom fatigue. So choosing to be on another Zoom call, I appreciate that very much. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you back at our next webinar.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for joining us. Have a great day.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.